Welcome to our daily review, and this is for May the 13th, 2020. So the purpose of this call is to basically look back on the day and see what happened, what kind of trades were present that we could have taken, and overall, basically what's going on in the market that's driving the prices. So we'll start off by taking a look at our Forex factory here. Oops. All right, so in terms of our data here, we did have good numbers for UK here. The trade balance numbers were not that great. This is today, right? Yes, and the PPI numbers, as expected, were worse than expected. Now, we did have Fed Chair Powell speaking, and the last couple of days we have talked about Powell's speech. Basically, the whole thing, the whole point of the speech, or the main point of the speech here today, was the whole discussion around negative rates. So market participants have been pricing in negative interest rates, and they're expecting Fed to go negative in the interest rates. Now, the Fed does not want to do that. Part of the reason there is because then there will be no point for anybody to be investing in the U.S. If basically there's no rate of return by doing so. So that's one of the reasons. There was an article that I was reading. I will talk about that in our in the bank report things tomorrow. But there was an article that I was reading. Basically, they had laid out all the reasons as to why Fed cannot go negative, and they showed the correlation between the countries that do have negative interest rates and what the performance have been, or the economic performance and the stock market performance has been over the last few years, Japan being one of them. So we'll take a look at that tomorrow. But overall, basically, Powell said that no negative interest rates at this point, and he essentially is throwing the baton at the government now, saying the Fed has essentially basically done everything that they are that they think they should be doing at this point. Now, he didn't completely disregard that they would ever go to negative interest rates, but he very strongly suggested that they are not going to negative interest rates at this point. One of the things that happens with that is the stock market drops, because the market was pricing in negative interest rates and they were expecting Fed to take more action. But now that they said no, it's basically, we saw a further decline in the stock markets, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Another thing that came out yesterday, last night in the Asian session, was this Reserve Bank of New Zealand monetary policy statement here. So they didn't cut interest rates at this point, but one of the points they did make was that they're going to expand their QE, quantitative easing program, so they're going to buy more securities. Another was that they actually did not disregard negative interest rates, even though they're not going to negative interest rates at this point, but they did not disregard negative interest rates. And as a result of that, we did see a New Zealand dollar drop. So one of the things that Reserve Bank of New Zealand did was they increased the caps for their QE program. So this is what I was saying. They expanded it. Basically, they're going to buy $60 billion worth of securities as part of the quantitative easing program, which is a lot of money to be putting into the market. So, but it is negative for anytime there's quantitative easing, it's negative for the currency and it's positive for the stock market. So let's go on to actually another thing I wanted to look at here. So the squawk here, I'm going to start talking about this a little bit more. Usually this is good when you're trading. I just went to FX Pro here. I used to have an account, demo account with them that is no longer valid. So I opened another one here. So they do not take clients from Canada and the US. However, there are other ways to get around that if you're interested in, and the reason for doing this is a paid service. You can pay for it. However, you know, when they're providing this for free, there may not be any point in doing so. And if you're interested in doing that, let me know and I will show you what I did. So all right, so what happened here, now a couple of things that are going on outside of that. We have we also saw more. President Trump has been very busy with tweeting and such. And then one of the things he's been asking for is negative interest rates. I don't think that is going to fly at this point. So he's been very much talking about that. And then there's also the China, we are also seeing tensions between China and Australia have been rising. And then between China and US are sort of starting to come back once again, because President Trump said that he's not willing to renegotiate the phase one trade deal, despite what is going on in terms of the current situation with COVID-19. But we will see what happens. But it just goes to show that there is more risk in the market, and hence the equities are going towards risk off, because markets, of course, don't like risk. And as a result, we have we've seen the drop in the market. So here's the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. We could use negative rates if needed. So this is negative for the currency. Nobody likes negative, well, businesses would like negative interest rates, because then the cost of borrowing is very, very low. That's why the stock market likes it. But the currency does not like it. The currency tends to drop when we start talking about decreasing interest rates. And usually they do, okay, so they usually do a wrap up, which report is not out yet. So once it's out, maybe we'll talk about it when I do the daily analysis. I'll just quickly run over that. But that's what we have in terms of overall news stuff. So let's take a look at our charts here. We'll start off with euro dollar. Euro did basically what we were looking for it to do. We were looking for it to go and test the high. It actually went slightly over, and then it dropped from there. So we have a nice bearish engulfing candle here. In terms of the trades that could have been taken, from the 1 hour here, this would be hard to trade. Now let's take a look at 15-minute here. So for 15-minute, this is too much uncertainty. This is when Powell was speaking, and as we can see, price spiked in both direction. The one that I like over here would be this candle, this particular red candle. The reason I don't like these two candles here, particularly, well, what I like about them, first of all, this is a double top. So we see price went into the resistance and could not hold above, went into our R1 level, couldn't hold. So I do like that it closed below our resistance level. Even second time, it went to test it and couldn't hold there. But what I don't like about these candles are these wicks, these long wicks in the bottom. Long wicks on the top is good because I would expect price to drop from here. I do not like the wicks in the bottom because they show that price is rejecting the lower price point. That's why I like this particular candle here, because this shows a momentum shift to the downside. This is a very strong bearish candle. So with this one, if you were to take a trade here, I would put my stop on the other side of this pin, because you never know, it could go and retest that. But I do like the double top here. I like prices moved away from the high now. Ideally, I would prefer this candle to be here, but considering there was the speech from Powell, and after that, this is when we got the signal. So short here, and basically, as we can see, price is going sideways here. We are into support. I do think this one could drop further, but I would like to see a pullback into this area and then a drop to take this trade. But I like how there is, actually, let's go on to our Let's go on to our 1 hour chart. So what I like about this move is that after we enter the trade, there's really no green candle still here. So this shows that momentum basically stayed to the downside once price moved, just like this move to the upside. Once price decided it was going to move, it just kept going in the same direction. And we have a similar thing here. Now, ideally, I would like to see a pullback into the daily pivot point here for this to continue to the downside here, and we'll see if that happens, or we may just get a pullback, shallow pullback for a continuation to the downside. So that's kind of what I'm expecting here. But there was that one opportunity that I think was tradable. Pound dollar here, this one also, as we can see, this one pulled back a fair bit here right into our R1 level here. In terms of an entry, I don't like this mess. There's too much back and forth. This is too choppy. I like this price move better. I like this one better. Same thing here. I like this one here. The tradable candle here would be this 1 hour pin bar. What I like about this candle is that price is into previous support and resistance. It rejected the R1 level, and now it gave us a daily pin bar, hourly pin bar. Price wasn't even willing to go test the higher level. We see that it gave us a lower high, and then it gave us a bearish pin. I love trading the pin bars. I, of course, did not take this trade, but I wasn't even looking at it. But this would have been an excellent trade to take. So this was a missed opportunity here, definitely. I need to be paying more attention to charts. I end up just taking a trade and then I don't really look at the markets or all the different charts, but I need to start doing that in the moment. So anyway, so this was a good opportunity, and the stop could have gone right here or just above this previous handle there. And as we can see, right into that S1 level. So anywhere over there would be a good place to close the trade. And literally just in 2 hours, the trade was done. And the number of pips, if you take a look at that, we have a ton of pips here. So if we enter the trade there to, let's say we closed over there, about 85 pips could have been had. So it moved from that point of entry, it moved about 105 pips. So let's say we gave back some pips and got 85 or even 80 or 60, whatever. There was an opportunity for us to capture some pips there. I missed it. So next time we need to basically keep an eye on things, or I need to keep an eye on things. So that was a good opportunity there. Nice trade. I like it. Nice, clean trade. One of my favorite trade setups, good level. This is the type of trade we need to find in the future. Okay, Aussie here. Aussie as well. We saw basically with Aussie here, this long could have been traded. And then this one stayed sideways during the Asian session. One of the reasons I would be reluctant to take this in the Asian session, the problem was New Zealand. News was coming out, and many times the Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar will move together. So I would be reluctant to take it in the Asian session, but this was a good candle close. But then it didn't do anything, and this is where it moved up. So it would have been hard to take it here. It could have been taken here, but I don't like this candle. I would like to see the candle close above the pin here, which will show us that that the momentum has shifted, which this candle shows. Now it closed above the pin, but then it didn't go very far. So in this case, I like this neutral candle here. When we get a neutral candle into a resistance like that, usually that means the price is likely to turn. And this is where going to a smaller time frame can really make a difference. See this bearish pin here? I love this bearish pin bar. What I like about this particular thing here is the resistance. So first of all, price is into resistance. This is a very clear area of support and resistance. We see that price tried it, failed, tried it, failed, tried it, failed with a very strong bearish pin bar. There is no wick in the bottom here that shows us that momentum is now to the downside. So this is like over a period of almost an hour, three 15-minute session. It wasn't able to break the resistance, and our R1 is right there. So I like this trade. We could have taken this trade either at the close of this pin bar, which would have been a very nice opportunity, and then put a stop right there above this pin. And then target would be in here. And as we can see, even from the 15-minute chart here, there aren't very strong red candles, green candles here. It just dropped and continued lower here. So this is a very nice trade. I really like this one here as well. Another option would be to take a trade at the close of this candle, or while price was pulling back a little bit to get a better entry. But this is a good solid candle close. This is a shift candle. It shifts the momentum from the upside to the downside here. So this here is just a signal. This is a momentum shift candle. So the shift candle just tells us where the momentum is. So that's a good trade. From the hourly, it would have been harder to trade, but I like this, our neutral candle here. Usually I've seen after the neutral candle on the hourly, price tends to drop. Not always, that's why we have to look at the smaller time frame, but usually. So that's a good one. And with this one, again, I would like to see a pullback. So we may get a pullback into this area, 0.6470-ish area. See how price has reacted to this area several times. So we'll see if it comes into that area. And overall, though, we see that momentum here, or the trend here, is to the downside. It's holding that downtrend. So we could get something like this, or we may even get a deeper one like that. So that's what my projection would be. So one of the things that we are going to look at, and I'm going to repost this video, it is in the Trade Vault, what do you call it, in the Trade Vault resources that we have on the website. You can log in and check it out, but I'm also going to repost it in our what do you call it, in our group, because this is what we'll be doing, or one of the things that we'll be doing in going forward with our coaching program. So I want everybody to basically do the review like this. I won't ask you to go through 20 different pairs, just do one or two, but I'd be looking for everyone to basically go through the chart, find one trade setup that they really liked that day, and explain to me why you liked that trade setup, and also do one projection. So something like this, saying in this particular case, what I would look for would be, and it doesn't have to be very, super descriptive, but just so that I understand. So here, for example, if I say my projection is to the downside, then my reasons would be, we have a downtrend, price has been making lower highs, and I am looking for a pullback either into the daily pivot point, which is also our support resistance line coming from here. So that's one pullback area, or right into our trend line, which is our downtrend line, and then I'm looking for a drop. That's all we need to do. Very, very simple, but I'm going to be asking everyone to do that. So thought I would point that out. Pivot points, I do have, so if you log into the Trade Vault on the website, in the Start Here section, or whatever the resources section is at the very top, you will see a video as well as files to download the pivot points, and the video will show you step by step how to install the pivot points, and it will be the same pivot points that I'm using. Okay, so Aussie dollar there, New Zealand dollar. Let's take a look at this one. Has dropped quite a bit. Okay, so New Zealand dollar, huge drop here. Sorry, if we go to not a 5-minute, 15-minute chart here. So this happened when the news was coming out, when the Reserve Bank of New Zealand news came out. Now, I think this would have been hard to trade personally, because my price jumped up and then it started to drop. So it would have been hard to trade. But what I like overall about New Zealand dollar is that it has been making lower highs, just like we saw with Australian dollar. This one here would have been an easier trading opportunity. So if you go to a 15-minute chart, what I like about this particular trade is, so if you zoom out, see, this is the back test of the level trade. So this is where price went through this support area, this one right here, went through it, pulled back, and then got stuck here. This, I really like these type of trades as well. So here, see how this pin bar, this is why I love pin bars. Pin bars usually pay, like 80% of the times, pin bars do pay. Now they are the odd 20% that you know, market will turn around, but usually they do. So I like this. I like this. It's right into our previous level, our support level that has turned resistance, and see how price just is not able to make it to the other side. So either trading this particular candle or the close of this candle, that's a pin bar as well with a slightly bigger body here. So somewhere in here, taking a trade. And in terms of the stop, you could do just a tight stop here if you just wanted to give it a try, or you can put the stop above this previous high if you didn't have time to sit down and watch the trade. And as we can see, this one went sideways here. This will be the place to close out the trade. So this is a nice trade here as well. I know, I keep doing this. I keep waiting for pullback. I did that for the pound. Oh, I was so annoyed for the pound yen. I was waiting for a pullback. This is why I didn't take this trade last night. I got into the euro yen trade because I was like, okay, this looks good. And then with the pound, I was like, oh, news is coming out. I'm not sure if I should wait. And then, of course, I didn't look at it for the rest of the evening, and I forgot all about it, and of course, missed it. So this is where I have to remind myself to set a reminder or something before I go to bed. But this was a nice pullback here as well. Dollar CAD here, this one bounced off of the pivot point, S1 level here very nicely. See how this is our support resistance level here. Price came into it. So this one wasn't bad either. So we have a nice bearish engulfing candle, and then goes right into the S1 level. I like the long in this one just because it's in keeping with our trend. So the trend here is to the upside, as we can see. So price bounced here, and we have a higher low, higher low. So that's why I like the long a little bit better here. So here's the thing. A lot of times people will get stuck in which way to trade, right? The reality is you can trade in whichever way you want. You could be short and I could be long, and vice versa. We could be on the two different sides of the trade, or we could be on the same side of the trade. You can trade counter trend, you can trade with the trend. The bottom line is whichever way you choose to trade, none of them are wrong, first of all, right? So I never want to really get into this discussion of why you shouldn't go counter trend, because I've had some really good counter trend trades as well. It's a little bit easier to trade with the trend just because we are kind of expecting. So if you do your projections, you would have an area of expectation in terms of where to take a trade, and it's easier to see for most people to go with the trending trades. Now, another thing is they're just a little bit psychologically, they're easier too. So, but the bottom line is you can trade in any direction that you want, and it's totally okay. So with this particular trade, the reason I like this one, it was with the trend, and then this will be the candle to take a trade. So close of this candle. I like that this is a bullish engulfing candle. It went right into our support resistance area here, went into S1, and we have a bullish candle close. And then once we enter the trade, I mean, this was a little bit scary, but other than that, we haven't really, like, this is the first solid bearish candle we have had. And we could have just stayed in this trade till then, but somewhere in here, you could exit the trade. And of course, it went from S1 to pivot point and R1. This is like a picture perfect pivot point trade. So you take it at one end and exit at the other end. But in reality, it would be hard to exit right at the top. So I would exit somewhere in here and we would be fine. So from here to there are still a lot of pips to be had, as let's say over here, 68.70 pips. Not a bad day of trading at all. So that was a nice trade. You know, sometimes you look at these trades in doing the review. I used to hate doing daily reviews just because I would always look at the number of opportunities I missed that day. However, we need to do a bit of a mind shift on the daily reviews. It's like a team, a really good team. So if you take a look at any sports team, a good team always reviews their plays, because then they get to learn what to do in the next time the opportunity presents itself. So that's why we go through this exercise, even though sometimes it can be heart-wrenching. Yeah, so it is much easier to do that, go with the trend. Okay, so that was there was good opportunity there as well. So let's take a look at our euro pound here. Euro pound looks a little messy, but this could have been a good. There are a couple of candles that I like here. I like this candle. This is a bullish engulfing candle. We see, so first thing, trading pivot points. When you are in a strong uptrend, generally price will go into pivot point, pull back into the next pivot point, go higher, pull back into pivot point, go higher. That tends to be how trading the pivot points generally works. Now, in this case, so we did have a nice bullish trend. Like this would have been a good candle to trade yesterday. So we had a good bullish trend, pull back into the daily pivot, price holds there. And this candle, I don't like it as much because it's shorter than the previous candle. I want it to be either equal or bigger, because then it shows us that buyers are in charge. So in this particular case, we see that they back tested this support resistance level, and then we have a bullish engulfing candle, and we see how price is holding above the daily pivot here. It is just holding above the daily pivot, so that's really good. I love that. And then that's one candle that could have been traded. And then this bullish pin bar here, close of this bullish pin bar. I love this bullish pin bar. So this is what our third pin bar that we have seen today. So this is why I love the pivot points and pin bars. So this is a really nice bullish pin bar. In this case, we could have put our stop right here or below the S1, just in case. And then once we see this candle here, this is the time to close the trade, the indecision candle. Like I said before, once you see a 1 hour indecision candle, generally I see it followed by a bearish candle, right? So that would be a good place to close the trade, because now this one can come all the way back right here. So in this case, there are two chances to get into this trade. One at the close of this green candle, second at the close of this bullish pin bar here, and close it right there. So that is bullish. Euro Swiss franc here. Oh, it's finally trying to break through that support. Not my favorite one. I would stay away from this. Pound Swiss franc though, this one was good in the sense that it had more pips. Okay, so see how we keep seeing these repetition. So we were looking at other pairs and see how price had gone through the support level and came and did a back test of the level. So the same ideas keep showing up, and this is why we don't need to learn a ton of different trade setups, cup and handle, and this and that. This is how I have just gone back to basics. So we can just, if we just stick with the basics, we can still get very good trades. So in this case, we have a back test of the level trade. So we see that price went through the support, held the support, went through it, retested it on the other side, and then we got a nice bearish candle here. So this is our railroad tracks. Railroad tracks basically means two candles that are equal. One goes in in one direction, then the other one basically takes that, shifts the momentum to the other side. So in this case, either the close of this red candle here or the close of this pin bar here. So this pin bar is not as good as the previous pin bars, some of the previous pin bars that we have seen. But what I like about this pin bar is that, see how price has been coming down here? See this downtrend? I like that. So what this shows us, it's like the waves when we think of the ocean waves. So when the waves are receding, we generally see that we have a big wave that comes out into the bank, or the side of the ocean beach, and then it pulls back, and the next time the wave comes, it's actually shorter. So if you're standing at the edge of where the first wave was, all the consecutive waves are usually, they won't get to you. They get shorter and shorter before the water calms down. So I see with the prices, we see a similar thing as well. When the price is losing momentum, it doesn't just shift sometimes, but what it'll do is it'll go and test, and then pull back, test again, pull back, test again, pull back. And each consecutive test is weaker and weaker. And that's what we are seeing here as well. So we have a bearish candle close here. So if we take the trade there, stop on the other side here, we have a nice trade. And again, we are back into that indecision candle. And then of course, we see that indecision candle followed by a reversal candle. And this is the pattern you'll see again and again. So when the indecision candle comes, we can exit the trade, and that's a nice drop here. And as you can see, 2 hours and trade, or 3 hours, I should say, and the trade is done, right? So that was a good trade. Dollar Swiss franc here. This one is sideways here. With this one here, the short could have been taken here, this pin bar. So we see here twice the price tested this level, and on a 15-minute chart, this would show as a double top. We have a pin bar here. It's not a nice pin bar with a bearish candle close like this, but it shows rejection. There's a large wick on the top, so I like that. So we could have taken a short at the close of this candle here, which would be right here. And in this case, we could have either put the stop on the other side here, so about here, or if you're more conservative, or you want a lot larger stop, I should say, over there, further up. But what I like about this is our support resistance level that has been tested several times before. And see how price finally dropped through this, and then finally came to retest this level once again. So again, this is the back test of the level trade, and then we have a pin bar. It's right on our daily pivot. This is good. I like this trade, so taking a short here. And then of course, see price goes into the support level and then pulls back from there. So somewhere in here, as it's pulling back, I would just close out the trade, because as we can see, this is a strong support resistance level right all the way there. So it makes sense to close out the trade there. In terms of the long here, I would be hesitant to trade that candle because it's too big. But if you were to go on a 15-minute chart here, then see, we have a double bottom here. This candle is kind of iffy too. If we think about it, this may have been happening when Powell was speaking, so I would be reluctant to take this trade. But this one could have been taken, but then our resistance is a little too close, so I would be a little hesitant. But you know how I was talking about the double top here? See, on a 15-minute, that's a really nice pin bar. So today we're just finding all kinds of pin bars for some reason. But that's a nice pin bar that could have been traded. And again, this is the back test of the level. So it's testing. And here we have a nice bearish candle, but this is our evening star setup as well. And of course, we have a double top here, right? So when we're looking at the charts, while the market is moving, this is how we need to look at it. And as we can see, more often than not, so how many pin bars have we seen today, right? more often than not, these trade setups work out, and sometimes they don't, and this is where things go crazy and we just take our stop and call it a day. This is the trade that I am really annoyed at myself for not taking. Okay, so first of all, what do I like about this trade? I love this resistance level. So things that are I'm going to be sounding like a broken record here, but this is a really nice back test of the level, right? Price, this was our support. Price broke through this, came back and got stuck right here. This is also our daily pivot. So what we know about trading pivot points is that when the price has declined, we're looking for a pullback into the daily pivot and then a drop. So I was watching it right over here, and I was not ready to take this trade because it didn't look like a good setup at the time, because I was concerned that this one will pull back either here or it could even pull back into the R1 level. So I didn't want to take it. And then I forgot all about it. But this candle here would have been my favorite one to trade after. See how price has been testing this level for hours now. So after this red candle closes here, that shows us that now there is really, price has tested it, and now we have actual good bearish candle close now. I would take a trade there, and of course you can put a stop here, or you can put it above here, whichever one you want to do, or over here. But it goes right into our support level, and somewhere in here we could have closed this trade out. And this trade, the reason I am so annoyed at myself for not taking it is because there was like 80 or more pips in this trade. So this one really moved. Well, I took the euro yen, which we'll talk about in just a second here. But this was in my opinion, the best trade in terms of the yen crosses here. And yen crosses by far were the top players today, plus dollar crosses, of course, as well. And the reason the US dollar and the yen crosses were moving today was because of the risk-off environment that we saw in the markets. So yesterday, the market started to topple. A couple days ago, or for this whole week, essentially, we've been watching the stock market, and the stock market has been kind of hovering, trying to retest the highs, but it hasn't managed to close above. And finally, yesterday, it closed to the downside and the momentum shifted. Today was a continuation of that move from yesterday. And when that happens, we are basically looking for yen crosses to drop as well. So we saw that correlation between the yen crosses from the risk-off environment. So this one, like I said, one of my favorite trades for the day that I didn't take, but okay. So euro yen here. So euro yen was a good trade as well. With this one, what I found was price was getting stuck below the daily pivot point. So as we can see, again, this concept, when the market is trending, the pivot point, daily pivot, becomes very important. So it's not always perfect, but it tends to play out more often than not. So that's why I highly recommend taking a look at the price in relation to the daily pivot point when the price is trending. So in this case, we see that price, first of all, it went right into our R1 level yesterday, and then it came all the way down, pulled back into the daily pivot. This one would have been nice. Sometimes I find price will go in one direction in the Asian session, in the beginning of the Asian session, and then pulls back in the other direction. So that's a risk. But this one was a good candle. And then this here was a nice candle as well. We see that price has just held. It held. Didn't really do much of pulling back. And then it slowly sort of made its way to the downside. See how this is slowly declining? That shows that the momentum is not really there to the upside. So I was actually thinking it will potentially pull back over there, because that would give us the head and shoulders, with this being a left shoulder, and we may get a right shoulder somewhere here, and this being the head, but it just got stuck right here. So I think I took this one somewhere in here, I believe. And then of course it pulled back, and this happened during the New York session when Powell was speaking, and then I was watching it and I was thinking, oh man, I'm just gonna have to close it out, maybe with basically break even here. But then I was watching it and it just held below the daily pivot, and then of course this was a potential candle to trade from as well. I wouldn't trade these two candles because they're not good. Large wicks in the bottom when I want to go short, it's not a good idea. You either want to see the wick on the top side or just not have any wicks. But so I don't like these two candles, but this candle could have been traded, and of course it went into our support level. Now, when I took this trade, I posted in our Facebook group, I said that the first target is right here, because see how price pulled back from here, and then second target was right here, and then we have this target, and then of course we have this target all the way here. So those are the few targets that I have in mind for this trade. Now, I did exit this trade because it was going sideways, like I said, right there, hasn't really done a whole lot, but I'm hoping it will either pull back into here to give us another opportunity. So this will be our back test of the level trade, or I'm hoping it will go all the way over there and give us an opportunity. We'll see how this one plays out. We'll have to take a look at what's going on with our with the stock market. Right now, it does look bearish. Looks like it wants to go down, but we'll see. I have seen price do one of these and then go all the way back up, so we'll wait and see. But bias is still to the downside on this one. Dollar yen here, this one, not really much. I mean, we could have traded the short here. This is a nice candle. It breaks away from the support, goes through the support, closes on the other side, and then of course up to here. But this is a big mess. I don't like dollar yen trades when both yen and dollar are strong. Generally, it ends up being a wash. So not my favorite from last night. This here is not bad. So see, same thing here. When we have price kind of trending to the downside, see when we get this type of an indecision candle on a 1 hour chart, it generally is followed by a candle in the opposite direction. So what I like about this one here is, again, we are trending to the downside. So we have our price is making lower highs here. And in this case, it goes right into, same thing here, it goes into our support resistance. See how price has struggled at this level previously? It finally went through it and then went and tested it again. So I like the support resistance level, and this is close to our 80 level. This is like 69.75, which is close to the 80 psychological support resistance level. On a 15-minute though, this was a better trade. So if you take a look at it, see how we have two pins. This is called a tweezer top trade setup. So it kind of looks like tweezers. That's why they call it tweezer top. Tweezer top trade setup is where price goes into a support resistance level and then it tests the level twice and it fails. That's why we have these pins on top. And or if you just want to look at it like a pin bar, that's fine too. But it's essentially two pin bars together to give us a tweezer top trade setup. These are good trade setups as well. We could have taken a trade at the close of this or at the close of this, whichever one, the first or the second, both are fine. And in terms of the stop, somewhere in there, or if you want to be a little bit closer to it, over there. But see how price dropped, and then the momentum was really to the downside for the most part, because see how the large candles are bearish candles, and the candles that are pulling back are just small, tiny candles. And now price is trying to hold below this back. This is again back test of the level trade, right? It's a little too early in the Asian session for me to get too excited about this, because what can happen is price can pull back into this daily pivot level and do another pullback and setup over there. So I'm going to watch it. But I am looking for a continuation to the downside on this one as well. So this was a good trade. I like Aussie yen as well, short. New Zealand yen. This one would have been a little hard to trade just because of this mess here, because of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. Now, in terms of this here, this could have been an opportunity to trade. So if we take a look at this one, we see price comes all the way from here. This is a good support resistance level. Price has been reacting at this level repeatedly. It finally went through it. So it used it as a support. So this was resistance. Resistance turns into support, finally breaks through, turns into resistance. So I like that. So this is a good support resistance level to begin with. So that's one. And then see how we have this bearish pin bar once again. So like three pin bars back to back. I like that. So any of those could have been traded. So these are good. Or even the close of this candle could have been traded, and we could put the stop right there. And as we can see, for the most part, there was a bit of what do you call it? There was a bit of a sideways move there, but it continued on, and you could either get out of this trade here. But I'm expecting this one to drop tomorrow as well. So what I'm looking for now would be a pullback here, either into this level, which is 64.30, or it could go a little bit higher into that level at 64.55. So one of those two levels I'd be watching, but bias would be to the downside here. But nice trade. New Zealand yen was also good. All right, so CAD yen here. This one as well was nice. And in this case, see, a theme that is becoming very common here is our daily pivot point. So in this one as well, we have, I'm seriously starting to sound like a broken record here. See how we have a trend to the downside here. So price held that trend. It finally broke through this support resistance level. So we have resistance, turns into support, finally breaks through, and then goes and holds below, and that's our back test of the level trade. So price holds below, or basically it's like a valve. It goes to the other side and then stays on the other side, cannot come back. So this is good. All right, so in terms of the trading opportunities here, I like this candle close here. So after all this mess, we do have, see how price was just sitting there, and then finally we have a nice bearish candle. So we could have traded that. Could have traded this one here as well after the close of this, but this here is a nice candle as well. And this candle and this candle are very similar, except for the length of the candle here, but we have the same thing. Price was going sideways, and then we have a shift in momentum. Same thing here. Price was sideways, and then we have a shift in momentum. So a bearish gives us a very bearish view here, and the entire time it held below the pivot point level. So this was very similar to what we saw with the euro yen trade that we took today or last night. I like this. So here we could have put the stop here or over here, and then basically, and as we can see, S1 right into the S1 somewhere in here, time to exit the trade. And in terms of tomorrow now, I would look for, or tonight I should say, I would look for a pullback there and a continuation. No problem, Ken. All right, so that's CAD yen. Pound New Zealand here. Let's take a quick peek. Pound New Zealand making double top. Okay, so this one would have been a little hard to trade here because of the New Zealand dollar. We saw this take off because what Reserve Bank of New Zealand said in terms of going negative and extending their QE program. So this is an inefficient move. We'll have to keep an eye on this. It could get filled. So watch out for that. But right now, I would not see any good place to take a trade. Potentially a short could have been taken here, all right, because that's a back test of the level. And in terms of a short, we could have traded that, but this is a better candle to take a short from with a stop somewhere over here. But then see how it kind of gets stuck here. So we would have to exit the trade in here somewhere. And now I would be concerned about this going all the way down. So we'll keep an eye on this. Euro New Zealand here, this one, all the New Zealand dollar, the only problem with the New Zealand dollars last night was Reserve Bank of New Zealand, and with them even talking about negative interest rates, that's just bad for the currency, and New Zealand dollar weakened right away. Now, again, we have all these inefficient moves in the New Zealand. See how this inefficient move here got filled. This one got partially filled. So we'll just have to be careful with this one. So let's take a look at Canadian dollar here. This one didn't really do much, very, very small. This is too messy. I would not trade that. This is way too messy as well. I would stay out of that. This one didn't do much, as we can see here. So this is what I was saying. See how, actually no, that would not be at the right time. This is different. This is when euro went up when Powell was speaking. I guess this one could have been shorted. This is a nice pin bar. It could have been shorted. With this one, what I like here is that prices into the support resistance level is right into R1. We get a bearish candle, and then we get a nice pin bar, bearish pin bar with a stop there. And first target would be the daily pivot. And then, of course, it got held right into the support resistance level. So we would have to exit the trade after this indecision candle. See how many times we have seen this indecision candle. We have a strong candle followed by indecision candle, and then it reverses, right? So I guess there was one trading opportunity there. Even this one, this is a nice pin bar. This one could have been traded again with a stop on the other side here, and then coming back, and see how this is. This one trending ups to the upside. Sorry. So this one, so that's why I'm always reluctant to kind of go against, but you can trade in the opposite direction as well. That is not a problem. We just have to be cautious that this one could turn. Pound Aussie here, we have a not much of a trade here. This is silver here, didn't really do much. Gold, Aaron loves to trade gold. Gold is looking good here. Oh, this is a good trade here in gold. What I like about this particular trade here is, see, first of all, this is our support resistance level, right? And this is our daily pivot point level here as well. Price just held this level, and then nice, strong, bullish candle close. So even if you put a tight stop right there, that's a great trade. And of course, it goes right into our close to our R2 level there, right into the support resistance level. So that looks good. I know Aaron's been killing it with gold. That was a good gold trade, long gold. And of course, I mean, this happened, so you want to get out of this. But for 3 hours, even if you close the trade right there, this was good, solid. Now, this happened when Powell was speaking, so I'm always concerned about central bankers speaking. Oil didn't do much. Copper. Oh, copper has a nice pin bar as well. See this one here. So once you kind of have a handle on your technical analysis, you can literally just trade anything, essentially. So this is our copper. I don't trade copper, I just look at it because it has an impact on Australian dollar. They are positively correlated. So when copper drops, Australian dollar drops as well. But see how we have support resistance level. Finally, price goes through it and then goes and tests it from the other side as well. So this here, nice bearish pin bar. I would put my stop on the other side of that pin because sometimes it can go and test it. And for 4 hours here, it just went in one direction and then it went sideways. Time to exit the trade and you're done. So that was a nice, easy trade, I have to say. I of course didn't take it, but that's a nice trade. And then actually, let's look at Bitcoin. What happened with Bitcoin? Bitcoin has its own stuff going on right now because it's the halving is coming up. That was a very strong bullish candle close, or this one was tiny. But this one pulls it away. I guess could have traded it. I'm not trading Bitcoin. Okay, this one, I love this particular trade. Okay, so what do I like about it? Let's take a look. Same thing. We have this. This is one of our back test of the level trade. See, we have support, resistance level. Prices struggled at this. Resistance turns into support. It stays above it and finally goes through it. Comes back to test it from the opposite side. So it's like a valve. Once it goes through it, can go back up again. And then of course we have a bearish engulfing candle close, a really nice bearish engulfing candle close. See how the candle is nice and strong, engulfs the previous candle. I like that. And then it just dropped right into the next support resistance level. And somewhere in here, this trade could have been, we could have exited that trade. Wasn't this in the morning? Actually, I think it may have been. This was definitely in the morning here. I was probably sleeping here too. Now, so this is a really nice trade. My husband's been trying to get me to trade the indices. I have not been doing that, but that's a good trade. Okay, so this one here, Nasdaq, this is nice as well. And again, we have the infamous pin bar once again. So here, what I like about this particular trade is today some really nice trades, and I of course only took one. But anyway, next time. Okay, so this one, this is very similar trade setup to the previous one that we saw on S&P 500. This one could have been traded, or this pin bar is a very, very nice pin bar. Love this pin bar. So the reason I like it is, again, we have a support resistance level. We have daily pivot point. It closes below the pivot point. It rejects the higher level. And in this case, we could have put a stop here or on the top of this one and exit the trade somewhere in here. So this is a very nice trade. We see that once we enter the trade here, it was just pretty much in one direction. I mean, this kind of got crazy, and it came to retest it, then started going upwards. This is what we saw in the yen crosses as well. Prices started pulling back, and that's where I exited the trade. So when that happens, it's best to close the trade. And another thing you will notice is when we see a pin on the bottom here and price does not hold below that pin, it's very likely it's going to reverse. So that's just something I've noticed. If you ever, let's say you sat through this trade and then price started going lower and you're thinking, okay, looks like this may go lower. But if it doesn't hold below this, that's the time to exit the trade, because it will do this. And of course, we have this inefficient move, so it couldn't even go all the way up here. We'll see. Now, in terms of a pullback here, this one may come over here somewhere, 90.50, or maybe even slightly higher in that area, which would be your 78% pullback of the Fibonacci level. So anyway, so that was a good trade as well. And let's take a look at, so we'll make this the last one here. This one here, oh, again, I love this pivot point trades. Today was a day for pivot points and pin bars. Okay, so again, see how price finally went through this, acted as support, dropped, and then this is our back test of the level. Price went through, couldn't go higher. So this here, I would take a short at the close of this bearish engulfing candle. This is a wonderful candle to trade there. In this case, the stop could have been a very tight stop on the other side here. Or even at the close of this one. The only problem with this is it's too close to the support. So this one could be a little tricky. But see, once we go sideways here, this is a good time to close out the trade. So that's that's a great trade in terms of, so this one's nice, easy. We have our daily pivot point. We have back test of the level, we have a bearish engulfing candle. It's like check mark on everything. And oh, that's a lot of pips. So money trade right there. All right, any questions before we wrap it up? So that's all I have. And then we'll see, we'll look for pullbacks and see if we can get some good pullbacks for us to take trades on. But today was a good day in terms of how many opportunities were present. Okay, no questions, so we will wrap it up. You're welcome. I will see you later. Bye for now.